Let's begin. My name is Mike Mucha. I am with the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation. I am their DBE Liaison Officer, and we are joined today by Joel Eisenfeld of the KFH Group, a consulting firm that we have hired to assist us in developing our new goal. The purpose of today's meeting is to allow for public comment on our proposed DBE goal for federal fiscal year 2022 through 2024. Per FTA regulations, when setting a DBE goal, recipients of federal funds must include a scheduled, direct, interactive exchange with the public to obtain feedback from our stakeholders. This is what we're doing today. Today, I will go over the background of our DBE program, which is just 5 slides. And then I will turn it over to Joel, who will go over the actual methodology of setting our new goal. And then we'll just briefly touch on next steps, and we'll open it up for public comment and questions at the end. So the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation has an established DBE program and overall goal per FTA requirements on federally funded contracts. The DBE requirement applies to DRPT because we receive, distribute, and oversee the use of federal funds from the FTA. DRPT establishes this goal in accordance with Part 26, Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations. DRPT also passes much of our federal funds through to rural subrecipient public transit agencies in the Commonwealth. These funds are also subject to DRPT's DBE program and goal. Our current DBE goal for federal fiscal year 2019 through 2021 is 4.6%. Our proposed DBE goal for federal fiscal year 2022 through 2024 is 7.8%. The exact DBE goal setting methodology is prescribed by federal regulation and can be found at our website. All DOT/FTA funded agencies follow the same methodology to reach their DBE goal. So I mentioned we pass funding along to our rural subrecipient transit agencies. In the table to the right here are the 17 of them and their location. These agencies participate in our DBE plan and goal and may represent contracting opportunities for DBE firms. They purchase things like fuel, auto parts, office supplies, office furniture, etc. If you'd like to get in contact with any of those agencies, those 17 rural transit agencies, I ask you to go to our website, drpt.virginia.gov, and this is a screenshot of a portion of our website. And in the lower right-hand corner is a link. It says DBE program. If you click on that link, it will bring you up more information about our DBE program, but there's also a link there that says how to do business with DRPT. If you click on that, it will bring you up that same table, but will also include phone numbers to those agencies and their website. And I would offer, if you need help in contacting these agencies, I would be glad to assist in that effort, or even make a formal introduction if you'd like. My email address is at the end, and you can just send me an email if you'd like help with that. So with all that said, I will turn it over to Joel.
Great, thanks, Mike. So as Mike mentioned earlier, this is part of a prescriptive process dictated by the Federal Transit Administration in coordination with their DBE oversight, and each region, as well as FTA as overall, has what they call a civil rights officer who guides and supports and reviews all of the recipients' submittals to FTA. So in doing this, it's a 2-step process, but step 1 is actually broken up into 3 different steps. And we're going to go ahead and kind of walk you through how we establish DRPT's proposed goal and how it is done based on a prescriptive process through FTA. So in determining this initial step is we looked at FTA funds that are provided to DRPT as well as the subrecipients, minus any revenue vehicles. That is a different classification. And we looked at these through the fiscal year 2019 through 2021. And in doing so, we look at by industry. And when we say that, it's the federal requirements provide different codes. And by those codes, they have different industry or description of work that is. Part of that, as you can see, there are 13 of them that DRPT has received funding through: building construction, signage, office furniture, non-transit vehicle manufactured vehicles, TVM, transit vehicles equipment, office supplies, fuel, advertising, consulting services, like myself, facility maintenance, vehicle service, and drug testing and other that go along with the operations of service. So as you'll see in the column that's colored yellow, it was the amount of DOT funds on each of these projects, and the total was about 33.8 million, and is by industry. And from that, we tried to determine what the percent of total DOT funds they were. So that way we could create a weight for each of those. Next slide, Mike. So the second step in this process, or the second part of step one in this process is, as we're developing the base figure, is that we are basically trying to determine from that how many potential DBE firms are in the area that could support this. But we have to kind of take a step back and first look at how many overall firms are there so we can get kind of the percentage of that. And we did this by looking at the latest census data, and this was from actually 2018. And that gave us the total number of firms from each of those categories that were available for such work. From this, we looked at what the number of DBE firms are in Virginia, and Virginia does a great job through the state, is that they have what's called the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. And in that, they have a DBE directory that provides lists of all organizations that have been applied for and accepted as DBE in the different categories. And from that, what we did is we did a search, and from that, we determined how many were available to work under each of those categories. So on that screen, it's we call it purple, but it looks like it's kind of almost like an orange color. Those are the number of DBEs available to perform this work by category. The purple category, I guess, or to me, almost kind of a blue, sorry, I'm not sure colors that at the different screens, that's the number of overall firms, all inclusive in terms of who could work on that. So from that, we determine what the relative availability would be, and that's then the last column. Next slide, Mike.
Yes.
Thank you. So the last part of step one is then figuring out, based on this, the weighted component behind it. And determine this, we took the figures, the base figure, and multiply it by the weights determined in step 1A, and then also by the DBE availability that we did in step 1B. So for example, the building construction, we took the weight of 0.0345, that's the initial weighted one, and then the availability of the DBE firms, 0.0515, and then we got an overall weighted base figure, so that would be 0.0018. Then what we did is we summed those for each of the categories and then expressed that as a percentage, and that equated to 4.6%. So that's the initial figure that we use as our baseline to say from this and from previous funding and the different weighted categories, what we consider our base figure percentage that we would start with. Next slide, Mike. But we realized that based on previous years that this might be not true to what we could actually do. And so from this, we determine of what really an adjusted base figure we could establish. So from this, we looked at, and as the slide says, 4.6 kind of like on the low end from what we've done in the previous years, the previous 5 years. So pursuant of what is allowed, DOT guidance, you're allowed to go back 5 years, up to 5 years, and look at what the median past participation percentage would be. So as you can see, we looked at fiscal year 2016 through 2020, and then from those, we determined what the median would be, and that was a median percentage of 11%. So what we're able to do then is take that figure, 11%, and then average it with the base figure that we calculated, the 4.6%, and from that, we determine our new base figure would be 7.8%. And that is how we calculated what we proposed to be the current 3-year 7.8% figure.
Thank you, Joel.
Sure. Oh, we're up to you.
Yeah, so based on that, what we do next is make modifications to our proposed DBE goal for federal fiscal year 2022 through 2024, based on input from this meeting, if necessary. We will then submit it to the FTA by August 1st, 2021. And once approved, we begin using the new DBE goal on October 1st. And that is basically, the presentation, and we open it up for comments and questions.
All right, if you would like to provide a comment or have a question, you can raise your hand in the instrument panel on the right, or you can type in your question if you don't feel comfortable verbalizing it. And we will give it a few minutes to see if any questions come in. All right. Did you use NAICS code 541990? This is also consulting services. I'm not sure what exactly that's referring to.
I can pull that document up real fast. I'm sharing my screen. I think I'd prefer not to do that.
I can take a look too, Mike, to see if I can find that.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that one.
And sorry, they said 541330. All right. I also see while Joel is pulling that up, we've got a hand raised. Looks like Lincoln. I'm going to go ahead and unmute on my end, and then you can unmute yourself, Lincoln, and provide your comment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
Hello,
for doing
we
this.
Can hear you.
Great. Joel and Mike, appreciate you guys doing this. It sounds fabulous. I'll be 60 soon, so I've been in this business since '81, and you guys did a great job already. I've been part of 3 8As, etc. My company is a SWAM and DBE. Been here 20 years. Some of the things that we are concerned about is we have a lot of incoming companies that we compete with, even as SWAM and other stuff. Frankly, a couple of spots that we're working in has no companies headquartered in Virginia. And sure, there are many, many companies who are DBEs now. So whenever something is sent out, we have tons of, frankly, pretty large companies. So the twofold question. One is, are you going to be preferring companies headquartered here in Virginia? And number 2, some of those companies who are DBs are still pretty big. So what we're trying to do, I think, in general, is grow the micro businesses. The companies that are less than 25, so that they've grown up, or less than 50s, and they can kind of stand on their own. So long set of questions there, but I did have 2 questions. I apologize.
Mike, you're muted.
No, great. If I understood the first one correctly, there is no geographical preference given. So firms within Virginia and outside of Virginia can compete for work.
And that's the federal requirement based on receiving certain federal dollars require that no geographical preferences. But I will jump in, Mike, with that is that often you have I won't say competitive advantage, but based on the type of services you're providing and in terms of what you're proposing, often we understand that companies or agencies that are local have the advantage of being able to be less expensive based on deliverable things or meetings or other in-person things that are often scored higher than out-of-state ones. So albeit that you can't score it that way, but it's often recognized as in the evaluation and review of it. But you're exactly right. In terms of a scoring process, that is not allowed by FTA procurement standards.
And what about size?
That's a good question. I don't think size is typically weighted bearing on that. I think often for local systems, what we often recommend, and I think to DRPT as well, is that when you do have opportunities, that you try to spread the wealth, among different DBEs, especially if there are multiple ones available to do the work, that you can provide the opportunities for not just one but many, one, to spread the wealth, but also to make sure that you're being competitive and also getting a product or service that you really would want to receive.
So regarding DBEs, we encourage our subrecipient transit agencies to check the DBE directory, SBSD's DBE directory, and there is no indication as to size in that. So they honestly don't know, and I honestly don't know the size of any of those companies. As far as SWAM goes, that's a separate state program, and I do think preference is given to smaller companies in that there's a statewide goal of I think 10%. But that's, the SWAM program is really outside of the scope of the DBE program. Is that helpful at all?
Yes, I just wanted to, since this is a public comment, we've been in this program 10 years, and because of those two factors, we get left out. And our capability is, we're ex-NASA people. We've delivered in my last company we invented the overweight truck permitting system in the, on the globe. The very first one was delivered here in Virginia. We certainly have the capabilities, but because of those two things, we just never ever get an opportunity. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
All right, back to the initial question from Keith.
Joel, you're muted.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. So the original question, the code was for engineering services industry consulting. And I think one of the reasons it didn't come up in this one, because I think the previous 3 years of funding, there weren't necessarily those opportunities. So I think that's why we didn't have that included in this analysis of the NAICS codes.
And that code is 543330, correct?
541330 is what I wrote down. Maybe I wrote it down wrong.
No, you're good.
541330.
Okay.
Right. You're correct.
But we'll go back and double check that. We'll make note of going and looking, to confirm that.
Okay. And then Richard Gordon, your mic is on. Did you have a question?
No, I was just sort of going to add to what Mike and Joel was saying. I'm with the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity, and so going back to the first question, we're not. This goal is for the DBE program, and so you can't mix SWAM and DBE together because they're two separate programs. And under the SWAM, we do have a micro business program, but the DBE program does not have that. So if you're a DBE firm, you are small business based on the small business size standards established by the SBA. And those are very different than the micro small business size standards that are established under the SWAM program. So they are two separate and distinct programs with different requirements. Now, I think, Joel, you brought up something as it relates to the 541330. So when you looked at those, the work that was projected, was that work that's projected to be done for the next 3 years, or were you looking at what was done the previous 3 years?
Mike, you can jump in too. I think it was a combination. We looked back at what was previously done and then also projected from that, realizing that similar work and looking at what the future program of projects and other planning tools that we had, looked at them, what potential future horizon funding opportunities there were.
Okay. Okay, that answers my question.
Was that correct, Mike, or do I?
Yes, I believe that's correct. And Richard, thank you for those comments. We'll make sure to include you as a panelist next time we do this. This is very good.
Okay. All right.
Haley, does it look like there's any more questions or comments out there?
No, Keith did respond. Thank you so much for being so patient and answering the questions, and that he would suggest taking a second look at the 541330 in the future.
Will do.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I saw you were on the call.
All right, let me take a look real quick and see if we have any others that have come through. I don't see any hands raised. Let's just say if we missed you or you were not able to be identified, or you have a question later, Mike, is the 30-day comment period still open?
The comment period, I believe, is closed, but I'll still accept any email, any comment that anyone wants to send to either me or Joel.
Okay, and Mike's email is up on the screen. All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.